Welcome to Beerfield. I am being joined by @RyanMiner_FFB at Beerfield Theory. Ryan Miner and Dan Theory. I am your two-time bar trivia I didn't plan on playing champion, Chris Hopper. Hop 134 on Threads with 2 P's.
Jeebus.
Beerfield Hop with 2 P's on Twitter. What's up, guys?
Hi.
Good evening.
You won't find me on Threads. And I'm also a 2-time back-to-back champion on Euchre right now over this past weekend. So,
Bob?
You will not find me on any other social platform besides Twitter. Until Twitter dies, then I will not be on any platform.
What the shit is Euchre? You're not old enough for Euchre, are you?
Euchre, it's a Michigan thing.
That's why we don't care. That's why we don't get it. It's a Michigan thing.
Yeah. You wouldn't understand.
You wouldn't understand.
I don't think I want to understand.
I don't either. Just like I don't understand why these players don't get talked about.
Good segue. Good segue. I don't understand.
To a segment that we're not quite there yet.
Don't get talked about either. That's what we're doing today. We're going to go through, talk about whatever's on Roto World for about 15 minutes like we always do, and then we're going to go ahead and get into a segment I like because we spend a lot of time in the offseason on free agents and rookies and camp battles and what it means maybe for guys that were misplaced by rookies, and we don't necessarily spend a lot of time around this time of year talking about guys that are maybe just, consistent. Same place, new face, or same place, same face, no real reason for productivity to fall off, or, maybe the other guy to a rookie that has, already ingrained as a veteran and there's not really a huge skill set difference. So we're going to try to give you some guys that, there aren't a lot of eyeballs on right now, or that are maybe flying a little bit under the radar that can help you out. So we're in the hardest got fishbowl drafts. So there's also kind of for us as we get into the mid rounds and whatnot, but really, it's good draft prep. So before we do that, of course, we are drinking stuff. Or at least I am.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right. Whoever.
I'll go. I totally did not forget that we had a show tonight, and totally did not forget to grab a beer for said show.
You're drinking
tonight.
Distill now, aren't you?
I am not drinking Distill. I dug through the cooler because in my cooler right by my computer is a bunch of barrel aged stuff that it's probably been in there for a long time. And what I grabbed out was Revolution's Destar. This is part of their wood age. Oh my god, their wood barrel series. This is the base of I would say their premium, but of their barrel age program. This one I don't know what they use for barrels in these. It just says bourbon barrels, but this one was made back in late 2019, so we got a fresh, damn near 3-year on it.
Nice.
In my cooler, get an idea of what it's still like. I generally like to save these for Thanksgivings or for some sort of
Special
sharing,
episodes.
but it's fun to bring on the show when you totally did not forget.
Yeah.
To get a beer for the night.
I got thunderstorms rolling through, so if I lose power or whatever, we're just done with the show. So we get as far as we get.
Like a time bomb.
Sorry, guys. It's
So
over.
I'm drinking non-alcoholic because I drank a lot last night. So I have Sober Carpenter's Irish Red, non-alcoholic craft brew, checks in at under 0.5% ABV, 45 calories, made with roasted barley, dark crystal malt, pale malt, so 2-row, or probably not 2-row, probably pale ale malt because it's European. And East Kent Golding and Fuggles hops. So, traditional Irish Red mash bill. More on this about halfway through the episode. Again, Sober Carpenter, non-alcoholic beer.
Sounds very delicious, actually. I have Founders All Day West Coast. It's a Sessions West Coast style IPA. Going tonight, something smooth, something light. Been working on my basement tonight, so
Yeah.
that was fast. Closest thing I could grab that wasn't heavy.
Yeah. All right. One other thing on beer before we move on. Oldest craft brewery in the United States, Anchor, is being shut down. So if you have a chance to grab some steam beer, do it. It's one of the only commercially distributed California Commons, which is considered a historical beer style. So you don't come across them all that often. Especially
Very rare.
packaged up, very, very rare. And it, with Anchor going by the wayside, Sapporo pretty much killed them. I won't riff on that. But don't support Sapporo. But yeah, swipe it up if you find it, because I don't know that I'm sure someone will, and I know that a lot of like local craft breweries do California Common or steam beer. You guys do?
Yep. We don't package it, but we do it from time to time.
Stubborn German does one during Shoppy Fest every year. They have on draft sometimes. They do package it, but they don't distribute. So, you want to get your hands on some of that. I should have done it before the show. Didn't have time to get out there. Did my shopping for booze earlier this week before that news broke. All right, let's go ahead and get into some NFL news. Starting off, kind of a note here. The note's actually on Saquon Barkley, but it's a good thing to note for anybody on a franchise tag. Deadline for long-term deals is Monday the 17th. So if a long-term deal is not in by Monday the 17th, then they're playing on the tag this year. So important for Dynasty.
Fun.
And if they're playing on the tag, that means they have to sign the tag if they're going to play, or you're going to pull or do they pull the Le'Veon Bell now? And
well, with how much of a penalty it is compared to the Bell situation nowadays, I
imagine they're.
I don't foresee.
I don't see anybody just sitting it out.
No, it'd just be ridiculous for them to.
Saquon, 10 million, 10 million, man. And you're right.
They even offer him
and he doesn't have a second
13 million.
And he doesn't have like an actual contract to go back on, a bigger one. It's not like a Diggs situation or like it's the same with Josh Jacobs. Like these guys don't have much of a leg to stand out in terms of money to go back to outside of endorsements, which running backs aren't as beloved as they used to be.
No, they're not, and that's part of why teams aren't really. I mean, the fact that teams now have a lever to pull to incentivize somebody to just play on the tag, especially running backs just play on the tag, versus giving them any form of long-term security, is 100% something that got neutered in the last CBA. I mean, bad deal for them.
Yep.
Jets are going to be on Hard Knocks this year, so that should be fun.
They finally found a team that actually wants to do it.
They didn't want to do it. I think they're the first one that said they didn't want to be on it.
There's a lot of teams that said no.
Yeah,
because it's a fucking distraction.
The NFL can just force it at the end of the day, and that's what they're doing. So
it's so sad.
It'll be interesting to see Sauce and Rodgers and Zach Wilson.
I don't want to see. I haven't watched it since I think 3 years ago. It's a lot.
The Browns one was great.
Last one I saw was the Bucks one.
Yeah, the Browns.
I liked last year's one because I was there for it.
Well, it's also your home team.
Hometown. Yeah.
I have zero care on Hard Knocks. I don't, especially now with Rodgers there. I do not give a fuck.
No players taking the supplemental draft. Alvin Kamara, no contest and misdemeanor charges and $100,000 in damages. Community service for him. First time offense, first time NFL offender. Probably not going to get much out of this.
Someone put out there's been a large amount of players who are not convicted of something more serious getting suspension. So I wouldn't be surprised if the initial suspension is handed down and then he appeals and gets one or none.
That's my predictions between 0 and 2 games. Anything higher than that, I'd be shocked.
I think they'll try to give him 2 and then he'll appeal it down to, and he'll get down to 1 or 0.
Probably down to 1.
That'd be my guess.
Most people don't get to appeal down to nothing. So
there's also
there's always something.
Wasn't there video evidence of this Or am I
Yes.
mistaken of something
yes,
else?
there is video.
No, there was
evidence of
video.
it.
Yeah, which is why I think they'll hand him down something at the start. They really, really like the NFL really loves to watch, videos of this stuff. They get really, really upset.
Bunch of injury updates right now. Earlier this week, Saleh said that Brees Hall is tracking to start week 1 and to play week 1 and to be ready to go. Not by the start of training camp, but by week 1, and they felt extremely confident about that. So, still think he might be on the Dobbins trajectory, given what they're doing at running back. But reading the tea leaves there, it might be a slow start in week 1, but he'll get to play week 1, maybe, possibly.
It's probably I see it being like a Dalvin Cook thing from 2018. Slow start, overexerts the other leg, high ankle sprain. May not be anything until mid to late season at best. But
Colts owner Jim Irsay said Gardner Minshew could play better early on when asked about how soon Anthony Richardson could be named the starter. While Irsay hinted at Minshew seeing the field early, he also highlighted the importance of getting Richardson on the field. Irsay said, Richardson, for Anthony, we know it's going to be tough, but he has to play to get better. There's no question. Maybe some package type things, a la what
Lamar Jackson with
happened
Flacco.
with Lamar Jackson with Flacco.
Oh my God.
With Minshew playing the majority. I mean, that makes sense.
This team is not competing. It makes zero fucking sense.
No, I mean, they've already kind of said basically that Anthony Richardson's not picking up as fast as they hope he would.
Change your
shocking.
I mean,
you want
it's not really shocking because
you want to renege on our bet there, or are you still doubling down on that?
No,
he's starting.
I'm not
he's
pulling
starting
out.
weekend. He's starting week.
He's not starting.
I'm not. I wouldn't do that to you. Didn't do that to you, Hopper. That's just wrong.
Plan
we
is
place the bet, we hold the bet.
Fair enough. Javonte Williams said the plan is for him to be cleared for training camp. So
he's the one I more think of as a J.K. Dobbins trajectory.
Yeah, I've thought that too. But the thing with any of them really is that they didn't really bring anybody that blocks either of them from starting week 1, right? Pirine can function as a third down back if Williams is ready to roll. Then it's not really a wasted signing by Denver. So
I'm not as concerned with what they're saying a month and a half away from the start of, a month away from preseason, and then 2 months away from week 1.
So
we're gonna get a lot. I think we'll get a lot more positive smoke now, for whatever reasons that the coaches want to do. I think it's better to hear that it's positive than negative, but
yes, and to hear some level of certainty versus uncertainty is good this time of year, because you can kind of tell after doing this long enough when somebody's beating around the bush or when they truly believe, this guy's on the right trajectory.
He also had Dobbins. Yeah, I also had Dobbins, guaranteeing week 1 starts.
Yeah, Dobbins
coaching stats. We had the Baltimore coaching staff also very optimistic he was going to play week 1. I don't think Javonte plays week 1. I think it's more likely that A-Rich starts week 1 and Dobbins then Javonte Williams even plays.
I will actually agree with that. With that statement, because there are weights to things that I believe.
I just want to mention you another shot. It's just unfortunately not going to be with the Colts.
Punter,
unless A-Rich concerns.
Punter news: Kevin Huber retired from the NFL. Longtime Bengals punter, famous for getting his jaw broke when he got blown up.
Oh God, that's right. Well, they're not going to do a lot of punting this year, so there's not much to do.
True. And we're already back to where we were the middle of last week. So great news segment. Good job, guys.
Beautiful.
That's how slow it is right now. Literally, I don't even have to go to the second scroll down on the piss poorly redesigned Roto World. I hate the new site. It's terrible.
I know.
A lot of people actually hate it, from what I heard. But I haven't gone on it either.
Glad I'm not alone. All right. I have something for this, but I didn't cut it or time it or anything like that. So just imagine that there's a drop here that is "Don't you forget about me."
Okay. I'll sit it in my head.
Don't Don't you forget. No one's going to join me in this, huh?
Forget about me.
I was just waiting for the
Don't
drop.
you?
I don't have a drop for it.
Forget
I know, that's
about
what I was
me.
waiting for. Fine, I came to the fist bump in the air. Fuck you guys. And
And
Ryan just leaves.
left.
Ryan's like, that's it. This is
He
this
just-
is the straw that broke the camel's
Just
back.
decided he's done. It was the booing drop. He's out.
That's what offended him.
It's over.
Oh, he's back.
We're done. He's back.
He stopped crying.
I say 30, 35 more episodes of this. I'm out.
A
A little more than that.
little more than that. Yeah, 58. Not that I'm
Oof.
counting. Not that I'm counting.
Oh, yeah, episode
That
442.
feels forever.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna start with so again, the premise here is just kind of throw some guys out there that we think maybe under the radar or kind of forgotten about. Maybe people didn't realize how good they are, just haven't really been talked about. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick this off. And first guy I want to talk about who hasn't been talked about in a while is Amari Cooper. I did not realize until this week how good Amari Cooper
Since
What do you
last
mean
week.
last week?
no, this week.
I mean, technically, I guess. But
Figured this
no.
out all on my own.
Without Ryan did not help.
Ryan did not
whatsoever.
help this at all. But no,
Ryan did not make us take Amari Cooper and
I'm
Scott
being
Fishbowl.
serious. This is 100% what made me think of this segment, because I thought, it was, I was just thinking, all right, yeah, it was kind of mediocre, and there certainly were some weeks that were like that, but the underlying metrics were absolutely huge. You had Watson coming back after, not playing in for freaking ever, and then missing the first 8 games,
12.
12 games. Yeah.
and
That's the
then
first 12.
having to plug into this and build that chemistry. But Cooper quietly had some really good underlying metrics: 3rd in unrealized air yards, 4th in total touchdowns, 15th in yards per route run, 18th in yards per reception, 13th in yards per pass attempt. Did have some drops, but that's just kind of expected. Overall, there's a lot that point to him being a top 15 wide receiver this year. From volume, from depth, from the way that he's used, targets, et cetera, et cetera. And not a lot has changed in that Browns receiving core. It's still him. It's still DPJ. So I'm all in on that being, if you start heavy otherwhere and you have him as your wide receiver 1, that's not the worst thing in the world. Like, I'm all in on the fact that is a decent under the radar guy, or even an under the radar high end wide receiver 2 as you get to your drafts. That, we know the quarterback has potential whether we like him or not. The only thing that's changed here is Elijah Moore came in, and a lot of the underlying metrics for him were very, very good.
Moore is also getting a lot of camp buzz. I hate to admit it, but that Browns offense has to be productive for them to compete in the North with the improvements across the board. I mean, including their own, right?
Right.
It's going to be a very difficult division. You're going to see a lot more shootouts. And if you're going to get a Ravens offense that's going to want to, push pace and be a little more up tempo and not rely so heavily on the running game and slowing the game down, it's just going to create for a lot more, shootouts in those, with those types of games. And Watson Cooper got to start on their work last year. You bring in Elijah Moore and got a deal that makes him seem very worthless, but a lot of us loved him. And there should be enough pass volume, even with Njoku there, as well, to make sure Cooper gets what he gets. And guys like Njoku and guys like Moore can also, be productive in those flex weeks.
Indeed.
Especially if something does happen to Cooper, which it's been his MO. Like he's almost always due to miss a couple games a year.
Anything to add, Ryan?
No.
All right.
You already know how I feel about Amari Cooper, so I'm
I
all
don't-
about him.
I don't. Have we talked about that here?
I was gonna say, I've never heard you talk about him enough.
I must have talked to Chris with a C last week about it.
That's
and
sweet.
Dan with the B.
Dan with the B.
All right. Yeah. Somebody else want to throw somebody out there?
Ryan, go.
Rashad Penny, man. I feel like he signed early in free agency. He signed for basically nothing. What? The Hopper push away doesn't like this call.
Hopper is never. You have to. I mean, Ryan, you listened to the show long enough. You know when Hopper hates a player.
I quit listening once I joined. Actually, I don't listen anymore. I just download just to help us get clicks. I
You do a lot
download
better than me.
Now.
I don't think I've listened to it since year one.
Well-
Go ahead.
I would say with Rashad Penny, like he signed like a $1.2 to $1.3 million contract, which is easily can be let go because it's only worth like $650,000 at the end of the day if they release him. But he's going to a better offense, one of the best offensive lines. He has the height, 5'11", the weight, 220 pounds. He has the fantasy stats to be an RB1 type of player, and he's going to RB7 or not RB7, RB70 in FFPC drafts right now at pick 105.
I don't know why anyone wants to draft Swift when you have both Gainwell and Penny with such a discount, and both are going to be involved in this offense. You can get for significantly cheap
Because it's going to be real hard for Penny to put up any type of value from IR.
Hey, when he's
If
on the
he
field
stays
and
healthy,
playing,
though.
he's good. You're not paying anything. You're not paying Swift prices for the RB. For a guy you can essentially get, in the double-digit rounds in your redraft leagues, probably. But
And he was winning people fantasy championships in 2020 or 2021. I mean, I'm sorry. 2022. I mean, he played 5 games.
That's his career high, right?
5 games. Let me see. 10 games in 2021. 9 games in 19. So 2021, yeah, 10 games is his ceiling. No, 13, 2018.
That go.
He didn't go any higher than RB16 per
419
profile.
yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, I get the call because he's cheap. It's
And we
Philly
forgot about him.
who will use big backs. I didn't forget about him. He lives in a place that only a handful of players get. Well, pretty much one back every year gets to live there. One back comes in every year and gets to live there for me, and it just so happened that Rashad Penny was that from his from the 2018 draft class.
which is oddly enough with guys like Sony Michel there.
I hated Sonny Michel too. Well, I didn't hate Sonny Michel. I was Chubb over Michel, is what that was.
My bad.
But
Should have
Yeah,
always
that
been the
would have been
case.
the right call.
yeah, I think Nick was the only one that wasn't, right? Or was that you?
No, it was all three of us were on. I just think it was more of a consensus after the draft that it was Michelle over Chubb
I
for
thought
people
I was
because,
always Chubb over Michel. I'm gonna go.
like
pull
I
that
said,
receipt.
all three of us, I think, were always Chubb over Michelle. I'm saying as in general, especially after the
gotcha.
draft, that the community, I think, became more Michelle over Chubb because of draft
pass
capital,
catching
which is
ability.
hysterical because Chubb went like 9 picks after. Like, he may not have been a first round pick, but he went like 9 rounds. He went like 9 picks after.
It was just a national championship game as well. A lot of people are
The
going off of
Colton
seeing
knows.
what
We
Michelle
all
did.
hate Sony and Michelle. I don't
I
hate
don't hate
him.
Michelle.
Michelle
I
is
like-
always.
I like my Georgia running backs. I'm sorry.
He became very, very cheap when he was
Yeah.
he was so good in product. Like, he was so good at attempts.
He's still
But
free.
I do like anybody from the Philly backfield outside of the cost of Swift. Like, I think at this point, I think we know Swift is going to be more of a part-time. Maybe he is the touch leader in that backfield, but I think Gainwell and Penny will both have
I was Rashad Penny
productive weeks.
over Sony Michel. 2018.
I know I was because I was the highest on Penny.
I
So Dan, are you
was-
thinking like Earth, Wind, and Fire with the Philly backfield right now?
Yeah, and I can't wait to watch him play in September.
I honestly think with the size that Penny is, that's your goal line back too.
No, it's
Yeah,
Jalen
but
Hurts.
he has the
Yeah.
speed too.
Well, that too.
Hurts Hurts with the ability to push your quarterback. Yeah, it's gonna be Hurts.
Yeah.
Until they make that a penalty or hurt the offense in some way, guys who are built like Hurts.
Well, and
they're the goal line.
That's
back.
a trade-off too, right? I mean,
yeah,
career high 6 touchdowns.
Or it's Gainwell. I mean, fuck, Gainwell had a lot of goal line, had a lot of red zone work too.
Career high 6 touchdowns in 2021 for Swift on 119 carries. Other than that, been 2, 2, and 3. So, or not for Penny. So, I mean, there's certainly upside there. It's one of the riskier.
Well, he's got that explosive game speed. Like, he had a lot of breakaway runs. Like, over the past few years, his yards per carry were 6.1 and 6.3, so 6.2 average. But, if you look at 2020, it drops down to 3.1.
I'm not necessarily debating that, but, I mean, this is a guy that's played 18 games over the last 3 seasons, too. So, and is in a backfield where the volume's going to get sliced 3 different ways and has never been much for touchdown upside and has damn near no receiving ability to speak of. So I'm not a Penny believer, but I do think it's a lower round pick that has a path to upside. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. He's definitely a bench piece. He's like an RB2, RB3 you're going to be drafting. He's like one that you'd be drafting as like an RB4, RB5.
Well, I won't. Play. Somebody else will be, but
I will. I'll take him at that point.
Who? Oh, Penny?
Yes.
As an end of bench stash, yeah, I have no issue. It's the same thing with like Niners backfields and what people talk about with the Dolphins. It's you want a piece of a backfield that continues to find production from the running backs for cheap.
Dolphins are buster cluck of a backfield too.
They are. And as soon as they had Dalvin Cook, it's going to get even worse.
Worse version of what they got going on there.
I still don't think Cook's going to go there.
I don't think Cook's knows where Cook's going to go.
I don't either.
And the sad part is I don't think Hopkins is the same way, and I don't understand.
Titans are apparently pushing harder for Hopkins than the Patriots are.
He needs to pick a fucking team
and I just kind of shrugged. Because right now, the people that are pursuing him are not anything that I would find
you mean you want
attractive?
New England Patriots Hopkins?
I don't want a Patriots Hopkins or a Titans Hopkins.
Titans off it. Oh my god. Titans are where old busted receivers go to be old and busted. There's so much evidence of that. Nope.
That is true.
Someone also drafted him in our Scott Fishbowl, and I'm like, why? Just it feels wasted.
Because he's gonna sign, and there's gonna be perceived upside there, I guess. But you
can't trade him. It's different if you can trade him, right?
Well, not really.
Someone just following the draft list?
More so Hopkins, not Cook. But
yeah.
Did someone just follow the draft list and say, all right, he's listed as wide receiver 24, 25, 26. I'm gonna take him here.
I mean, maybe.
No, I still think there's a play there, right? Because with Scott Fishbowl, because you can't trade, there's going to be injuries. Someone's going to get hurt. You're going to need a reinforcement at some point with upside. And depending on where it was, that actually makes some sense. I mean, it's not like the dude's not productive.
Right.
I have nothing else on Penny.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. Dan, what you got?
All right, we're gonna go back to receiver. We're gonna go KJ Osborne.
I love this call. I loved this call last year too.
Osborne, last couple years, primary slot option, especially with the injuries to Thielen. He was fifth in slot snaps last year. I think he was tied for 20th and 21. He moved inside for that reason. We've seen from Addison, especially during his days with both Pitt and USC, that he can play both in and out. It's no guarantee that he's going to play out of the slot. So keeping Osborne in a role that he's comfortable with on an offense that it figures to be top 5 in passing dents again, and could have every bit of opportunity to have 3 wide receivers get damn near close to 1,000+ yards. And that's the upside of Osborne. He's going to be dirt cheap in Dynasty, dirt cheap in redrafts. I love Addison. He drove Osborne's costs completely down into the dirt, which is great for these type of upside in the bench stashes. He was top 10 in routes run per PF or per player profiler. He was top 10 in routes 1 and top 8 in total routes won. Very, very important. We're looking at a guy who's going to get a lot of opportunity to at least get targets, and he's not going to cost you a lot. This isn't chasing Gabe Davis in the 6th round. This is chasing a free upside player that could have just as easily the same amount of production and targets for guaranteed bench. So
looking
draft
at him,
him.
I didn't realize he had 90 targets last season.
Yeah.
Like
Kirk
that's
Cousins was a 4th in pass attempt, 642. And believe it or not, that could go up this year with the improvement to Detroit and Chicago.
yeah.
Other thing
It's
too is without Cook there, I mean, that frees up some targets and Thielen. You
running
have
backs didn't get overly involved last year, which is still helps the offense. Hawk and him playing different different parts of the field shouldn't really eat into each other's
no,
production.
and honestly, with Thielen gone too, there's vacated targets there.
The rookie transition is going to take a little bit of time. Everyone thinks Addison's going to step in right away week 1 and be lighting it up.
I mean,
Right.
Just Jefferson infamously didn't start till week 3.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Thanks, Zimmer.
I mean, Osborne, he had a couple games last season where he was double-digit targets. You know, week 10 had 11 targets. Week 15 he had 16 targets. So
Yep.
sneaky upside draft pick here. I like that one, Dan.
Yeah, several weeks over 100 yards too. Without double-digit targets because he can work deep. So,
And he will be. I mean, I'm very interested to see how they work him in towards the middle late parts of the season.
phenomenal.
I think
late round best ball pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely think he'll see a lot more of his upside or his high starts and stat percentages early on in the season. As Ryan mentioned, will get worked into the offense, and Osborne already knows it and has been productive in it to an extent. So again, this is about cost weighting your upside, and this is why you target players on good offenses instead of trying to find your needle in the haystack. Just find the guys that are going to be on the field as much as Osborne will be in an offense that should be very good. There's bound for upside, especially in best ball. Yes.
Yeah. All right, back around to me.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going tight end. Couple different options that I could have here. Cole Kmet was in play. Greg Dulcich is the guy that I want to talk about, though. He only played weeks 6 through 16 last year, so he only got into 10 games, but it was a rookie tight end with productivity, 411 yards in that time frame, 55 targets in that time frame. So you extrapolate that out, that is incredible pace, and it's not like, there weren't a ton of people missing time in that time frame. You've got only 2 touchdowns. Had he been able to haul in a couple more there, this is a guy you're talking about being top 5 for the time that he was on the field as a rookie. That offense should be better with Sean Payton there. I expect it to not be the dumpster fire it was last year. That should lead to more red zone opportunity, which should help those touchdown numbers. And again, producing as a rookie. So, as a tight end, that's a great sign for future prospects. He should be available in your later rounds in kind of that mess of tight ends that you want to grab, and he's somebody that kind of like Kmet last year where he was a popular grab, or even Freiermuth. He's a guy that I think we're just starting to see what he's going to put out there.
I like it.
Yeah, it's tight ends.
I mean,
and I also picked a tight end too. But look, he didn't call Mike, because I was like, I looked right at Daltrich, and I'm like, oh man, I'll have to call him out. But then I found another one even better.
I'm going to give a little bit more meat to this. He was 5th in route participation while he was 6th in slot snaps. So he was split out, 7th in air yard share, 3rd in target distance, 3rd in deep targets. Red zone targets was way down. 7th in unrealized air yards amongst tight ends, 9th in yards per. So a lot of underlying things to like there as well.
Ryan?
He is totally solid. Are we going with mine now, or are you?
Here's your tight end.
All right, my tight end, I went even further down the list. I went Dawson Knox, and that's all just because of the Dalton Kincaid hype. You look at Dawson Knox right now. Yeah, he hasn't had he's been back end tight end 1 or a back end tight end 1, high end tight end 2, but people just think he's just gonna fall to the wayside now because of Dalton Kincaid being the first round pick. And what irritates me is you look at rankings already, and they already have Dalton Kincaid so much further ahead of Dawson Knox, and I feel that's wrong right off the bat just because it's rookie tight ends. I've never seen a rookie tight end right off the bat explode onto the field. If you look back at maybe Rob Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham, they kind of Gronkowski had 10 touchdowns his rookie season, but he didn't even break any. I don't think he broke 800 yards that year. And then Jimmy Graham, I think he was more of a second year and compared to a first year.
He was not a year 1 guy. No, he was not.
And same with Travis Kelce. His first year, he did absolutely nothing because he didn't play. But even his second year, he did a little bit more. It wasn't until his third year where we all knew who Travis Kelce was. And the way with Dawson Knox has been running, he's a touchdown machine for what we look for tight ends. He had 6 last year. I think he had
9.
1 year he had 8 or 9 before. Yeah,
I think in 2021 he had 8 or 9. That was
yeah,
the big.
9
9, right?
Yeah, and then he was a back end tight end 1, and I just don't see him going anywhere. This offense trying to. I think they want to try to pull the ball out of Josh Allen's hands more, just because of the way he fumbles and the way he throws interceptions. I think with all of his interceptions, I think he had 13 interceptions. But then you add on to that, he had 8 fumbles. Thank God he recovered all of them and only lost 2. But I think it's still going to be the Dawson Knox game over Dalton Kincaid.
I'm a big believer in Dawson Knox. I've always been a big believer in Dawson Knox's talent. And the thing that's been maddening for me with him, I think, is just the consistency. When you look at his target shares, there are just some weeks that they completely go away from him. There's other weeks that touchdowns save his ass. And there's other weeks where, he's getting 7, 8, 9 targets and it actually is sustainable. And that's all tight ends, I think, in that range. But I think that's the one thing that's been maddening about Dawson Knox for me, because the talent's there. He can do it when his number is called. He can do it in the red zone. There are just some games that they go completely away from him. And I don't think Kincaid's going to get anything handed to him because they do have Dawson Knox there. I agree with that take. But if they start splitting it in any way, shape, or form, the way that they already fade away from Knox, it gets a little scary. But I'm with you. Knox is too talented of a player to just forget about his existence and your love for Dalton Kincaid.
I mean,
his contract. Let's go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's anyone not named Stephon Diggs. That's been the Bills' offense. I mean, I think people forget that Allen. I mean, he's going to be Allen. You live and die with these type of quarterbacks. All the turnovers you live and die with. That's the type of quarterback he is. It's going to bite you in the ass at some points. It's going to help you. It's going to help elevate not just the team but the game in itself. And Knox is just one of the pieces of puzzles, right? It speaks more to finding mismatches from the offense in itself. I don't expect Kincaid to be productive, right? The last productive tight end was kind of Pitts, but then before him it was Evan Ingram, and you're looking at 800 yards. That's not going to come easy. That's not going to come consistent. Knox will probably be a guy that gets 2 touchdowns, and we go, why the fuck is he getting touchdowns and not Dawson Knox or not, Kincaid, not Diggs? But Knox is a threat in the red zone. I don't expect him to go away either. It's just, I don't trust anybody not named Diggs on this offense. But thankfully, because we're talking about costs, it's Knox is going to be free.
One guy I trust on this offense not named Diggs.
Oh, do you mean Khalil Shakir? I wish I could trust him more. I'm going to want to trust him more. I mean, I could trust Gabe Davis to be untrustable.
Do we need to do don't forget about Gabe Davis?
No, because we spent all of last year wanting to forget about Gabe Davis. So I'm glad where we're at. And I bring him up as much as anybody because I like to remind people to forget about him.
And one more thing I want to touch base on too with Dawson Knox is his contract. His dead cap this year is $26.135 million. followed by next season being $20.28 million.
They gave him an extension.
Yeah, he signed
Dude,
it.
Buffalo has made some pretty weird draft picks. I mean, it makes that Kincaid pick like they were on tilt. They wanted Addison or Flowers so bad.
Yeah, it was 4 years, $52 million back in 2022.
Oh, that's bad.
So yeah, I mean they have 2 huge years of dead cap if they're to cut them, and then 2025 is like the true time they can get out of them, where it's only 7.8 million.
Jesus Christ.
Well, so that's why I don't see him really going anywhere.
That's just speaks to the problems of both of
it's
Buffalo's.
Real frustrating for a lot of people. Then
a lot of people are dropping Dalton Kincaid. I can see it already, especially like when not in Dynasty they won't be dropped, but redraft I can see him being dropped. The hype's going to be there. Everyone's going to want him. They're draft him. He's going to be gone by week 3 or 4.
Probably he's going to be dropped in both.
I'm not drafting.
I don't know about Kincaid, but
first off, you're drafting rookie tight ends and redraft anywhere before the double-digit turnarounds. I don't know what you're doing anyway.
Dude, it happens. Like they see premium and they just like, oh my god, Kincaid's going to pay off on his premium. Spoiler alert, maybe 3 tight ends are actually worth the premium. They're not getting +2 above receivers or running backs.
Yeah, Kelsey
at most is 1.
Kelsey Andrews, and then whoever the third guy decides to be on that
Hawk.
year.
It'll be Hawk, probably Mandrews. We know it's going to be Kelsey.
Kittle can be. We've seen it, but
Waller. You can't forget Waller.
Waller could be. Ingram, maybe. I mean, that's what I mean, right? There's going to be a third guy, but who?
Hawk.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hawk will be number 2. Andrews will be the one that's got to stay healthy enough to get that.
I don't know if Hawk can be number 2.
Oh,
I can still see Andrews, but I can see it could be Waller or Hawkinson as number 3.
I think we'll just
at peak.
The answer is you want both. The answer is you want both. You're arguing about who I love more. It's fine. All right. We done on.
What you got, Dan?
We're going back to running back. I got Antonio Gibson.
Cool.
Late round pick. The community has not only turned on him, but has completely forgot about him since last year. And, admittedly for decent reasons. Ron Rivera has been widely inconsistent with how he wants to use him, his talk about him. But J.D. McKissic's gone. They didn't bring in another running back. They brought in Chris Rodriguez, 6th-round pick, who's more of a clone to Brian Robinson. Gibson, 58 targets last year. McKissic had 41. Not to say that they're all going to go to Gibson, but Gibson's the true key to help unlock the next step in this offense. You have good receivers around Howell, and now you bring in what should be a more explosive running back if he remains healthy, just a more explosive playmaker onto this team. Something that Brian Robinson and Chris Rodriguez can't really give you is a threat out of the backfield that can win in both phases of your game on offense. And the best thing about this is he's even cheaper than last year. He's especially cheap in Dynasty was just shocking. I've been trying to acquire him in a lot of places. Redrafts, he's going to be cheap. We are almost at the end of the 9th round, and he still hasn't been taken yet. I probably will take him. I'm actually up. I don't expect these guys to be listening to the show to slam me while talking about it, but there is a lot of upside to his game. We've seen what that could look like with double-digit touchdowns his first 2 seasons, over 1,000 total yards in that time frame as well. And the offense is just continuing to get better. It's just, again, what drove that price down is the unknown with Rivera and with Gibson kind of battling injuries last year and not being the best a player in the world, but he's just too explosive and too dynamic to keep off the field for long periods of time.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that, and he's the one that's getting a smoke this offseason from Rivera. It's not Robinson or anyone else. He was supposed to go by the wayside and fall off last year, and it never happened. Like, they wanted, I think, to phase him out in favor of Robinson, and it just didn't go that way. He's too talented for that to be a concern, and it's a team that's gonna need their backs to produce. In the absence of a proven quarterback. I love that call, and I think he is a guy that I think people are steering so clear of the Washington offense in general that he's a guy that's going to be flying under the radar.
I mean, like, we gotta remember too, like previous last year, he was putting up RB1 numbers. Like, he's finished as a back in RB1. And then all of a sudden, Brian Robinson gets drafted. Brian Robinson's the plotter. He's getting 20, 25 carries and barely breaking 60 yards. And then you see Antonio Gibson coming in the backfield and cleaning up for him. So it's like, what is Ron Rivera trying to figure out? Like, is he trying to force the whole Brian Robinson thing down the field and not realize Antonio Gibson is his best running back? Like, is it just the Alabama logo? I don't get
Gibson isn't like a great runner. It's just neither
does.
is the rest of the running back in that backfield. Like, they may be slightly better, but Gibson gives him so much more in explosiveness to that team. So it doesn't, like, I agree with you. It just doesn't make sense to take him off the field as much as they do.
It's these Memphis running backs. They're actually good. They're converted wide receivers who go to running back.
It just may take a little bit for them to get completely comfortable.
Look at Tony
using
Pollard.
Their instincts. Yeah, look at Pollard. Yeah, same thing. It's some Memphis backs, as you said. It's some game will start now this year. Yeah, right. It's the true RBU.
All right, let's do a review, and then we'll do one more round and call this.
Beer review.
Chris, I'm assuming your beer was that good because it's empty, from what I see.
Pretty solid. So, what I've run into with a lot of these NA beers is that that the body's been lacking and the finish has been a bit not what you'd normally expect. It kind of like diet soft drinks have a kind of a oddball finish that I don't really know how to describe. So do non-alcoholic beers. It's real interesting thing, but this one actually corrects the body problem in a darker beer. It doesn't have all the body of a seltzer with beer flavoring in it. This one actually does get the body right. The malt character is pretty damn close to what I'd expect out of a normal Irish red. It's a little bit caramely, a little bit roasty, little toasty. The hops do come out in not like a generic hop sense, kind of like some of the IPAs that I've had, where it just kind of is like a generic hop character. You do get some of the nuance of the noble hops that are in this. Finish is still very, very much distinctly like non-alcoholic beer finish, which has like some minerality and doesn't trail off quite the same way. But overall, I think that this is one of the better ones that I've had. So I will be trying other things from Sober Carpenter to see if it's consistency across the brewer, or if they just happened on a good Irish red. But either way, pretty impressed with it. As far as non-alcoholic beers go, the only thing you're really missing is the finish on it compared to a traditional Irish red.
So I had the all day West Coast style IPA, and it's actually, I have to tell my second one, it's actually a very good chuggable type beer where it doesn't actually really hurt you. Great tasting with like a citrus as most West Coast IPAs are. It kind of has that bready feel to it too, where it kind of has like a little bit more dryness to it. It's like how I kind of explain like a sandwich when it comes to like breads. But the caramel malts, distinct like herbal, dank to it, a little bit of piney, a little bit, it's kind of lemony citrus to it. Pretty good, easy to chug. That's why it's also called the Sessions, though, too, at the same time, because it's something you can actually drink all day long.
You're supporting some of my homebrew session IPA.
There you go. All right, again drinking Revolution's Death Star. This is the 2019 version, released late 19. Holds up well. Obviously, with these barrel-aged imperial stouts, they're going to generally hold up for about 5 years, if not longer. A lot of guys will say, drink them within the first, few years. If they have adjuncts in it, generally within the first year or so. So we're on the brink of that 4-year, almost onto this beer, and it I'm sure it tastes as good as I remember it, a few years ago. I like to buy these in their very expensive 4-packs and hold them on for a long time. They kind of get an idea how they age. And I don't drink a lot of them anymore, but I do kind of miss drinking them. One of my favorite styles. So if you see this around your area, towards the late fall time, highly recommend picking up Thestar, and I highly recommend picking up any of their Deep Woods series. Straight Jackets, probably one of my favorite beers of all time, which is one of their barley wines. So highly recommend picking them up.
All right. I guess I'll kick it off. Are we on me?
Yep, your turn.
All right, I'm going to go with the running back is my last pick, and I'm going to go James Conner. So, another offense that's going to be without their quarterback, at least to begin the season, going to rely heavier on the running game. James Conner, off injured, that really didn't change last year. He played 13 of a possible 17 games, but in those games, he had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, 300 receiving yards, 46 receptions on 58 targets, which is really good, especially for PPR, for a back that does see volume on the ground as well, and 7 rushing touchdowns in that time frame. Arizona's shown willingness to use him down by the goal line. If he's going to be involved in the receiving game, and without Hopkins, I mean, they're going to have to find productivity in the receiving game wherever they can get it. James Conner on a points per game basis is a top 10 running back. But he's a guy that, again, just be it the offense or, the injury history or whatever, often is kind of being, I think, overlooked, especially when volume's king. When he's healthy, he's going to get a certain amount of volume. And they haven't really done anything to strengthen the running back core at all. So you have no reason to expect a fall off in his volume, maybe a little bit in efficiency, but he can afford some of that. Another stat that I love with my running backs is yards created, and evaded tackles. I like to be able to see guys that can create, even if it's not necessarily blocked for them. He was 31st in run blocking rate, but 14th in yards created per touch. 20th in juke rate, and 13th in evaded tackles. So, even if the offensive line isn't great, he's still shown the ability to be productive.
Love it.
Heck yeah.
Ryan?
I'm gonna change it up here. I'm gonna go with a quarterback.
Ooh. How
Yeah.
can we forget about the most talked about
Who
position?
forgets about Brock Purdy?
Close. I'm going
Close.
I'm probably on the right team.
I want him to
honestly.
say Trey Lance. He's like,
think-
ooh.
Oh my God, yeah, no.
I-
I'm going Russell Wilson here. And a lot of people
Russell
hate him.
Wilson. He's
Yeah.
so corny.
He is so corny. Dude, and he was absolute dog shit last year. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
That offense was dog shit last year.
It was horrible. He was dropped on off of every team. It didn't matter what he did. Like, he just looked like I don't know what it was. I think it was really Nathaniel Hackett, because once the Hackett was gone, that's when Wilson actually stepped up and actually looked like Russell Wilson that we saw in Seattle.
Yeah.
Like, over his final 2 games of the season, he actually was a top 5 quarterback. Finishing with,
Believe it
4
or not, they got a
touchdowns.
really good team.
Yeah, and especially right now, they got a really good team. They bolster the offensive line. They attack that defense. And instead of with Sean Payton was losing one of their picks due to the Sean Payton trade, they lost their first round pick. They used Marvin Mims as their second round pick as their first pick. So that kind of tells you something like what Sean Payton's trying to do with this offense is he trying to get more airborne.
Repeat
And I
his
think-
bad draft history from New Orleans, or
Could be. Hey, he did draft Michael Thomas too, so I can't knock him on that.
he drafted
And Brandon
Traquan-
Cooks.
and he drafted Traquan Smith.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey now. Hey now. I know.
And Jimmy Graham, right?
He was Gabe Davis before Gabe Davis.
No,
Yeah,
right?
I make that
Gabe
joke
Da-
because they
Gabe
played in the
Davis
same
actually
school.
Produces
So does Traquan produced. He did?
twice.
As much as Gabe Davis. It's incredible.
Not even close.
It's a goddamn UCF schools, man. They just produce these boom bust receivers. I'm sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
Thank you. And with like a lot of these teams, like, most people will say, like, one QB leagues, you're only going to draft one quarterback. I don't know that many people who actually truly live up to that. So, like, if I'm looking at a QB2, he's definitely one. Like, if I can't get Jared Goff on my team, Russell Wilson's definitely like one I'm like targeting as like the end of the draft to add as my QB2, just because of that upside I'm starting to see come back. And I hope that sticks from weeks 16, 17, carries into week 1.
He is so cheap, like insane for
He's
super
free.
flex leagues. He's like, he's insanely cheap in those. He's pretty much free in redrafts, and you can get him for pretty cheap in Dynasty right now. Given his age and what we saw from him last year, and Ryan brought up, I love that call. Like I've been trying to get him too. I do like the Denver offense. They're gonna it's gonna like Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
If they want to compete, and they have the defense, they have the league's best defense. Philly may have added a bunch of fun pieces, but Denver is the one that really locked teams down last year consistently.
Don't forget about Miami
Consistently.
this year.
Yeah.
Miami's a huge threat, I feel, defensively.
Yeah. And Denver's going to have to keep up offensively just within their own division. That
Yep.
I do like that call. I do. All right, I guess
All right, Dan. Yeah. So
my last
what
one.
do you have?
I guess we're gonna just keep going with names that are just like they're high profile ish, but for some reason people just kind of talk about other people. Terry McLaurin, we kind of brought him up earlier in the show, right?
Yeah, we did.
John Dotson's getting a bit of love. It's still the Sam Howell show. That's the one thing Rivera hasn't really lied about, which is shockingly enough. Played with Howell one game last year, week 18. Believe he was 6 for 3 for 74 yards, or 3 catches, 6 targets, 74 yards. Howell did nothing that game. It's week 18, so it doesn't really matter. But McLaurin, deep threat type of player, 9th in receiving yards, 12th in unrealized air yards, 4th in deep targets, 70th in catchable target rate. Obviously, we know how bad Washington's offense was last year, especially at quarterback with the debacle of Wentz that turned into the debacle of Taylor Heineke that got to see how kind of get his play within the last week of that season. But McLaurin just continued to be the under the radar player that just was hamstrung by the team that he was on. 7th in yards per target. And again, 61st in target accuracy. It's the improvement. Howell is not a godsend at quarterback. The reason why he was a 5th round pick. But he should have never gone as far as he should never dropped as far as he did, when compared to the rest of the quarterbacks from that 22 class. The fact that Pickett went in the 1st round and Howell went in the 5th round, it's still shocking to me. Howell, to me, is still a part of that tier. Well, I may not be in love with him for the long term. We're talking about McLaurin and what he could provide for us this year, and that's a cheap wide receiver too. That if Howell is better than what a lot of people expect, or what maybe some people thought he was after his first season with North Carolina, McLaurin could be a very cheap wide receiver 1. And I think that's may seem, pretty far-fetched just given Washington's offense, but he's going to give you a lot of production. You're getting him as your wide receiver 3-4, and he could potentially give you wide receiver 2+ numbers.
I hope he can get wide receiver 2+, because all last season he had 4 wide receiver 1 games, and outside of that, he was just so boom bust. Like, he'd go wide receiver 20, wide receiver 34, wide receiver 24, wide receiver 82. Like, it was so much up and down. It was more frustrating than anything with him.
And it's not. I mean, again, wide receivers are affected by their quarterback play. Very, very few can overcome it, and even then, like it takes, Hopkins levels of dominance from 2015 to, to get to that point. But there's a lot of good things I like about McLaurin if they can find some consistency there. And I don't think Howell has to play. I think Howell can easily play up to what Wentz and from what Wentz and Heineke was last year. And just the improvement in the offense as a whole should make this offense be more productive, and thus McLaurin.
Because over the last couple of years, we were almost drafting him as a back end wide receiver 1. I think 2 years ago, and then last year he was like a higher tier wide receiver 2. And now this year he's going back to like a back end wide receiver too. So I feel like that value, like you said, is even a better one to get because most of the times you can get him as your wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 because a lot of people like myself are looking more at Jahan Dotson and what he did.
I mean,
So
I do
that's
like
not a bad
Dotson.
call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now in best ball, he's the 28th wide receiver.
Yeah, these two are
generally
separated
based
by
on
much.
ADP. Yeah, they're not. And Dotson, was the product of a lot of touchdowns.
Yes.
Obviously, we know the touchdowns aren't thicky, but McLaurin is the go-to number 1 receiver as of right now.
Yeah, I was a Dotson manager. He was a product of a lot of touchdowns and a lot of frustration. You had one game two, that were driven by not touchdowns. Now he had touchdowns in both of those, but almost everything else that you felt good about Dotson with was touchdowns. It wasn't volume, and he could just as easily go up and down as McLaurin could. Now, yeah, his target volume went up towards the end of the season, but I'm honestly, I see Dotson and Pickens I'm branching a little bit here off of McLaurin because I don't really have anything to add to what you guys said. Dotson and Pickens are very similar, I think, as far as their trajectory. Pickens had generally more volume, more floor, and I think I would prefer him over Dotson.
I take Pickens. He's got obviously more upside. That offense wants him as it's one, where unless McLaurin leaves,
Right.
I think Dotson will be the number 2 there to find 2, right? And especially they got to hopefully they find something with Howell, but
Yeah, find someone with Howell or another quarterback.
Washington isn't as locked in to Howell as Pittsburgh is locked in to Pickett right now. So Washington can easily, fix their quarterback situation quicker than Pittsburgh.
Very true. All right. Anyone else you guys want to bring up, talk about?
I don't think Patrick Mahomes gets talked about enough, guys.
Who's he?
I think we don't talk enough about Jamar Chase.
Anybody heard about Bijan Robinson, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson?
Ooh, I don't. Bless you.
One good one since you brought up Patrick Mahomes is Jerick McKinnon.
Is he on the team still?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah,
I know,
they just
he
returned
is.
another one-year contract.
I almost brought Pacheco up, honestly.
I don't like Pacheco, man. I like McKinnon.
I like them both, man. Their cost cheap. Pacheco's a little expensive.
Pacheco's high. He's a back end RB2. Like you're basically buying him at his ceiling right now. I don't like that. Just because they like to go with the hot hand approach, and the hot hand last season, as the season went on towards the end, it was Jerick McKinnon, especially with the receiving upside.
I do like both. Pacheco will be. I mean, obviously he'll be more game script.
I'm trying to see where Jerick McKinnon's going right now.
McKinnon's probably free.
RB42.
Yeah. And he'll have his weeks where he's not going to be used much either. They don't want to spend, right? They're still feeling the sting of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and they want to find another Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably what this is. Like, we all like Jerick McKinnon, we'll like Isaiah Pacheco, and it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year.
Well, I think healthy. There's distinct roles there, right? Because I was looking at Pacheco earlier, and my argument was he didn't have any, his receiving work was really, really low. You look at McKinnon, he only carried the ball 72 times, but he had 71 targets and 500 receiving yards and 9 receiving touchdowns. There's a very distinct split between what those two backs do well.
And they haven't really found, again, a wide receiver that can kind of be...
No. McKinnon's a great
you
call.
Can't replace Hill, right? Yeah. But they're again still trying to manufacture production through. They're basically trying to moneyball this receiving core with the loss of Hill. That's great for Kelsey, but it's great for guys like McKinnon when he has to find a guy that he trusts. And Mahomes has no problem throwing out of the backfield. We saw it with Hunt. Like there's no issue there. But there's no deep ball guy, right? There's no guy that can kind of give you the wide open, awareness that they can get. Sky Moore wasn't productive at all last year. We'll see what they get in Rashee Rice. They let Juju go, and we know who MVS is, and Mecole Hardman is in New York. Like guys like McKinnon's going to be important to that offense, and especially again when you go back to the teams they play and the shootouts that could happen. a guy like McKinnon can be a real big threat when
He was a
leaks
fantasy
out of the
winner.
backfield. He was. He hands down won me some Scott Fish bowl games last year.
He had nine of his 10 touchdowns came in the last 6 weeks.
He had back to back
just on fire.
30-point weeks. Like he's productive.
Yeah, he was back to back RB1, the RB1, not just a RB1, but the RB1 in PPR.
Mm-hmm.
You can say he's the Gabe Davis of running backs.
Yeah, I like that one. I would take. Yeah, he's definitely one like back end like running back like to get at the end of the drafts, if I can.
Yeah, and you just have to, the hyper efficient, right, last season, but the volume being there, not really anything to take that away. So ride it while you can. It's a good late round dart throw, especially in PPR leagues, like you mentioned. This is a guy that you look at the last several weeks of the season. He's putting up, wide receiver 1 and 2 type numbers just in his receiving stats.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then you throw some marginal rushing prowess on top of that. And I do mean marginal. The last 3 weeks of the season, he didn't rush for more than 10 yards. But you can break that down and really easily see where the distinction is between Pacheco and McKinnon and where the value is. McKinnon is definitely a better value in any type of PPR.
Yes, absolutely. And don't look at week 18 because that game didn't matter anyways for them. So
right,
that's why he looked like crap. But he still scored a touchdown.
Yeah, the 2 weeks before he also kind of looked like crap in the running game, not the receiving.
Yeah. Yep.
You just got to know what you're getting. All right, that's the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We're doing a beer episode. So we'll be back on Monday of all days. Weird recording schedule, just based on availabilities and stuff. So
Welcome to life.
It happens. That's life. So we'll be doing a beer episode, taking a little break from trying to force ourselves to talk about things in the off season.
I'm so pumped.
All right.
Hopefully my beer talks better than my fantasy football talk.
I mean, I can guarantee you won't have a player recommendation I hit on next week.
Probably not.
As long as you don't bring up any smoke beer, I think I'll be fine.
I love smoked beer.
I know you do. I like smoke.
I never had
porks.
one.
I don't like smoke. Generally smoked. I'm not a big Petey fan.
Did you
So I'm not a huge.
I had Roush beer at the draft.
I don't think I had it.
No, I talked to Ryan. Ryan said he never had
Ryan.
one. But I had my Roush beer at the draft.
You wouldn't remember.
No, I was getting 7.7s by then.
You got
So
no, you
I love my 7.7.
Oh my god, good times.
Oh man, the good. Okay.
Okay. All right, Monday.
Monday.
See you guys.